we decided for this video we would force ourselves to spend 1 week playing Halo 5 Guardians exclusively to see if Halo 5 does play a little bit better or feel a little bit better now that it's no longer in that spotlight of being the newest Halo game representing what the entire Halo franchise truly is. So we cleared our schedules and we decided we're going to play nothing but Halo 5 Guardians out of the Halo games for 7 days and document how these 7 days went, and it was kind of interesting. Hey, listen, before we get into today's video, want to know how you can get $25 of free stuff, specifically ramen-related stuff? Well, fortunately enough, Vite Ramen has the hookup for you guys because they sponsored today's video, which honestly is always really exciting whenever we get to work with a company like Vite Ramen, because not only do you guys get great tasting, healthy ramen, like seriously, this is some top quality stuff sent right to your door, but Luke and I also get to pay our bills, and that's always fun. And if you're a fan of Rocket Sloth and you want to help support the channel, the best way to do that is to support the sponsors who support us directly, and Vite Ramen is literally known for having a great reputation in the gaming community. They've done some really awesome things lately. Their ramen is healthy and it tastes great. What more is there to say here? Right now, when you order a bundle, you get $25 of free stuff included in your bundle. And seriously, 2022 is a big year for Vite Ramen. They're becoming really popular and everything's in really high demand. So you might notice in the store some things are between limited quantities and some made to order status. So you definitely want to jump on and get your orders placed as soon as possible so you can be eating this great ramen quickly too. Once again, a huge thank you to the guys at Vite Ramen for supporting our content, sponsoring Rocket Sloth, and of course, providing our audience with some cool ramen. Okay, let's go ahead and jump back into this. Okay, so there's this thing that a lot of people in the Halo community have talked about, especially whenever we get close to a new Halo game release, which is something called the Halo cycle. You may have seen memes of this posted online, but essentially it's this idea that if you look at any set of the last 3 Halo games at any individual point of time in the Halo timeline, it's usually people nostalgic for one of the oldest Halo games, then people hating on the newest Halo game, and then somewhere in there people are saying one of the Halo games is super underrated. Now in general, I think that that's kind of silly to look at these Halo games and just classify the conversation and common discourse on what the Halo games looked like at their release and whether or not we should appreciate them for what they are based on some sort of Halo cycle. But maybe there is a little bit of truth to this that a lot of people aren't talking about, and they're more just leaving it up to the Halo community being dumb, which I don't really think the case is. I think this idea of a Halo cycle is a little bit more involving the importance of a new Halo game and what significance that main Halo game has as a representation of the state of the overall Halo franchise. So for instance, when Halo 5 Guardians released, there was a lot of backlash and a lot of the player base falling off pretty quickly. To this day, a lot of people disliked Halo 5 Guardians, and Luke and I on our channel have even been critical of a lot of the 343 era Halo games, but I also think it's very important to acknowledge that there is a difference in looking at a game with a blank slate and then also looking at a game with the implications that it could have for the franchise and how the overall franchise is being handled. Halo 5 Guardians released at a very rough time where the Halo fanbase is already fractured after the Master Chief Collection had a terrible broken release, and on top of that, in general, the Xbox One wasn't doing the best sales wise. There wasn't a lot of hype around Halo because not a lot of people were playing Halo. A lot of people chose to switch over to the PlayStation 4 during this time. And Halo 5 launching with things like rec packs and a new and improved movement system, and already having a limited player base that it was releasing to, because in 2015 there just weren't that many casual players with Xbox Ones at the time. People at Xbox Ones back then mostly were Halo fans who were buying the Xbox One with the intention of being able to play whatever Halo game would come out. But this was one of the first times that Halo didn't have the casual audience interested in the franchise altogether, and I think that impacted Halo 5 right out of the gate. With a campaign that was mid and a multiplayer that was drastically different to say the least, Halo 5 definitely garnered a pretty negative reputation in the Halo community, which brings us back to this Halo cycle idea. After the mess that MCC was, games and Halo 5 Guardians being kind of lackluster at launch, I think that definitely impacted the way a lot of people felt towards Halo 5 Guardians, because that game was now the antithesis of what Halo was. And I think a lot of fans didn't feel like Halo 5 Guardians did a perfect job at capturing everything that Halo truly is or was, and the legacy that it created up until that point. So finally though, with Halo Infinite out and us having enough time to digest Halo Infinite for what it is, I'm optimistic that if we go back to Halo 5 Guardians, while we'll still point out some of the shortcomings of that game, there might actually be some level of appreciation for some of the interesting things that Halo 5 Guardians did do that maybe we didn't appreciate enough during the critical time for the Halo franchise when it released. So feeling rather optimistic, we decided to jump onto Halo 5 Guardians and load up in some good old fun, and we decided, you know what, big team battle sounds great. We hopped into the queue and the wait started. And it was a pretty long wait. We actually never ended up finding a game of Big Team Battle. And mind you, this was a Thursday at 1 a.m., but still, we waited there for quite a while before we finally gave up after not finding a match. Okay, no big deal. We'll try some Warzone. We didn't even get close to finding other players for this one. We also wanted to try to play quick game. However, for whatever reason, whenever we tried to load in the quick game, it said that we had too many players, even though it said that the fire team size was up to 4 players, and we were just a group of 3 people. So we figured maybe you have to have like teams of 2 or 4 people exactly, or 2 people to play. I don't know. It was really weird that we couldn't play this, we thought. We actually tried a couple other playlists and weren't having much luck, so we decided, you know what, let's just try ranked. Maybe someone out there's playing ranked, and we decided to load into SWAT, and we waited for a little bit, and surprisingly enough, without waiting that long, we got matched into a game almost immediately. So we weren't really ready to jump into straight on competitive Halo 5 right off the get-go, but hey, at least we got to play a little bit of Halo 5 and we got clapped just horribly. It did not go well whatsoever. Mind you, the first night of this, I didn't even have Halo 5 Guardians installed on my Xbox, so I was playing on the Xbox Cloud, so the latency was a little extra, but I don't even know if that would have made me perform that much better if I did have it installed, because these guys were really, really good at Halo 5 SWAT. I mean, obviously they must be if they're still playing Halo 5 SWAT after all this time. So that was our first placement match in ranked Halo 5 Guardians, and it looked like we were playing against a champion, Onyx, Diamond, and a Platinum player. So that was hype. We sat around in some other lobbies trying to find any other game. We were even down to play SWAT against those guys again, if that's all we could find, but we couldn't actually find a game to connect to. So after waiting around for quite a long time, it being well over an hour at this point, we decided just to switch gears and play some custom games. Now, this late at night, the custom game browser wasn't as populated as we expected, so we settled for a game of Fat Kid on this clown-looking map, and the first thing we noticed is that this wasn't a game of Fat Kid. The zombies were all just as fast as the survivors, so I don't know if they didn't understand what they were making the playlist for, but the map was pretty cool. You had to go inside this building and play these mini games to open up the next door. It would have worked a lot better if, you couldn't get killed instantly by the zombies that are moving just as fast as you, and there's no slow zombie in sight, but the map design was kind of neat. The game was a little repetitive though, after we were just getting spawn trapped in this tunnel whenever we were infected. So we decided to load up on a different custom game, and we actually found a big team battle on Blood Gulch, which was really cool. The map design was interesting, a little greener than I expected for Blood Gulch, but hey, I could vibe with it. For whatever reason, each base just blasted the Halo theme music. I guess that's something you can do in Forge in Halo 5 Guardians. I just thought it was kind of funny. The closer you got to the base, the Halo music would just progressively get louder. And this map was cool, though it definitely got very spawn killy very quickly, where my team was just stuck in our base getting sniped or shot at by the tank that Luke was in. And it definitely wasn't as fun as the Blood Gulch I remembered. Also, it took me about halfway into the game before I realized we weren't playing Capture the Flag and we were just playing Slayer, so part of that might be on me. And that concluded night 1 of Halo 5 Guardians. What an interesting ride. What a interesting vibe. We definitely realized after this first night we were gonna have to get on at an earlier time, and with the weekend coming up, we're optimistic that more players might be jumping on and populating it, because what else are you gonna do on a weekend besides play Halo 5 Guardians? So that's where we were headed the next night. So for going into day 2, one thing that we knew would be something that could be kind of fun to do would be trying to grind Halo 5 Guardians to max rank, something we never actually got around to doing pre Halo Infinite, infinite because we're so focused on getting all the achievements in MCC. And this was something a lot of people used to go after, so we thought, hey, if we just hit it hard this week, maybe we can hit 152, the max level that is possible in Halo 5. We were level 33. 34 or something. And this time around, since we couldn't find a matchmaking game on our first day very easily, we thought we would try a different time to see if that would help us with some matchmaking. So instead of jumping on super late, let's try a better time. And we hopped on at 6 o'clock in the morning because that's just the time we got around to it. So at this time, Tails was definitely not around. He had passed out on Xbox hours earlier or something. We never really know with Tails. Sometimes he's just there and other times he's not there. And sometimes he is there while not being there in a different way. So because we could jump into quick play, we found a game actually surprisingly quickly, but we ended up disconnecting from it, which was kind of frustrating. So we had to search again, and we did actually find a game, which was surprising, and we won, which was our first win so far on our journey back into Halo 5 Guardians. We ended up getting a second game in, which this time around was on Truth, which there was a little bit of hype about getting to play on Truth. I don't know, we just kind of like the way that this map feels, even if it is a little wider and more open. And we got to play a third match on this cool nighttime city looking place. It kind of reminded us of that one Infinite map, but maybe a different street in a different town. I don't know where I'm going with that, but nonetheless, I really always have liked the aesthetic of this specific map. It's kind of fun, and the gameplay itself was good. I didn't do very well, but I didn't have a bad time either playing this match. It seemed like after we got those 3 games done though, the queue time was really starting to take a toll on us. So we decided to maybe take a break and, try to go to sleep like normal people, and we would regroup tomorrow and try to do some more matchmaking. The next day, we did hop on at some pretty late hours again, this time around 3 a.m. And once again, we couldn't find any regular matchmaking games when we were just kind of hoping to jump into something. So we thought, hey, let's mix it up and play some Halo 5 Guardians campaign. Now, interestingly enough, when we jumped into Halo 5 Guardians, this time around, we decided to really just kind of go in with a neutral attitude, not try to rush through it, just play through on easy difficulty, take in the surroundings, try to understand the story, because it's a little confusing. And we'll talk a little bit more about our overall reception of the campaign, but day 3 is worth noting that at the very least, we did start looking at the campaign. Day 4, we got on a little bit earlier than we had been, so we were able to get some actual matchmaking games in. This time, we had Dim with us, who was all the way up pretty close to max level, not quite there, so we thought he'd be willing to join us on our journey. And then Dim explained to us how ranking works in Halo 5 Guardians. Essentially, once you hit rank 150, there's still 2 more ranks you're supposed to get afterwards, and the time it takes you to get from level 1 to 150 is about half of the time or so it would take you to get from 150 to 152, and in total you need about 50 million experience points. Now, Dim went ahead and did the math where if you grinded Warzone as much as possible, which is one of the most efficient ways to getting XP if you can actually get into a Warzone match, and you played for 24 hours straight without sleeping at all, you might be able to get close to 1 million XP a day, which means it could potentially take 50 in-game days to get to that 152 level if you're actively finding games at a regular rate, which nowadays obviously isn't going so well. So it was looking like our dream of hitting 152 during this week was probably dead in the water. So from there, we tried to jump into Super Fiesta, which apparently works and you can find games pretty easily. We found a match, but Luke ended up getting kicked from matchmaking, and this ended up leading us into this recurring issue that we kept running into with Halo 5 Guardians throughout this entire week, where we would set up and wait for a matchmaking game, finally get into a game, and then one of us in the party would not be able to join the match and get disconnected from the game. We have no idea why it keeps happening. It's incredibly frustrating, and this is something that had happened to us way before Halo Infinite even came out. It was an ongoing issue that we ran into. We thought it was, maybe our Xbox is just acting up, and to this day, we still run into this issue on a regular basis, and a lot of the times the only way we can do that is if everybody resets their game and starts over, but even some of the time, we still end up disconnecting from games. This happened like 5 more times in a row for about 40 minutes of trying to get into a game, and matter of fact, at this time we were playing, the game wasn't even dead, at least in the playlist we were in. We just kept running into problems actually getting into a game. By the time we did finally get into a game, we got to play Husky Raid of all games to get in the Fiesta playlist. I'll admit, it was kind of fun. It was really chaotic. We didn't do very well. The map did look really cool. I have to say, like, the way that the Forge environments in Halo 5 Guardians can look really, really nice at times. And honestly, after such a headache of just trying to get into a game, after just one game, we weren't able to get into anything else, so we went back to campaign to continue on the progress that we had started the night before. By day 5, we had been chipping away at the campaign just enough, and honestly, this playthrough in a retrospective sense, not as a, hey, this is the Halo game that is definitive and representative of where the Halo franchise is at right now and where it's going in the future. As just a standalone Halo game, it was okay. I definitely don't hold a grudge towards Halo 5's campaign as much anymore, as it's not the main stage Halo game showing fans and new players what Halo is all about and where it's going anymore, as Halo Infinite kind of takes that role on now as it's the newest Halo game. I still stand by the fact that I think Halo 5 Guardians campaign would have served a lot better as a spin-off game focused strictly on Locke and his team, rather than having the Master Chief just kind of playable throughout a couple of levels in between. I think they could have built the mystery up much more, where you're trying to figure out what Blue Team is up to, rather than us seeing Osiris, wondering some sort of mystery, and then immediately finding out when we do get to actually play as the Blue Team. It would have been cool if they just did it as the entire story straight through beginning to end as Osiris without figuring out what's going on with Blue Team. And then once you finished Osiris's story and the game ends, then do a little epilogue story where you play as the Blue Team for the 3 levels that you do and figure out what happened there. Then I think the reveals would have come at a better pace and just a whole lot of things could have worked a little bit better. Still, it wasn't completely a disaster by any means. I'm a lot more forgiving this time around because the bigger picture of Halo isn't at stake anymore with Halo 5 Guardians. It's just another game in the list of Halo games that are out there. I do have to say, there were a few times though throughout the campaign where we were just standing around like, what's going on with the story? And we just didn't know really what was going on. We were just kind of letting the story go on, and things are happening around us, and we were just killing stuff, trying to figure out what this means. There was some parts in the third act that really got confusing. Day 6, we decided to crack open Forge mode a little bit, which was kind of interesting, to be honest. In the past, I have a little bit of a history of forging maps in Halo 3 and Halo Reach, so I was really interested in Halo 5 Guardians Forge mode when it did come out, though the controls for it did throw me off a lot when it first released, and that's maybe why I never fully got into it. And a few months to a year ago, Luke and I did decide to jump on Halo 5 Guardians and just start forging a map for fun, and we did actually have a lot of fun. We started building this really cool cyberpunk inspired city, and originally our plan for that map was to base it off of the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 map, Skid Row, except this one would be at night and in a cyberpunk inspired city. And we never ended up finishing that map, so we opened up Forge mode and we just kind of started working on that map again and just appreciating the hard work we did put into making that map. We didn't get too much further on it, but it was cool to open up a map that we had spent a lot of time on and just get to walk around, because we were really proud with how far we did manage to get, even if I couldn't get the crosswalk to line up exactly the way that I had wanted it to. Then after that, we just jumped on and we played some more custom games. That is really a cool feature of Halo 5 Guardians, just having that custom game browser accessible and being able to jump on and play different custom games. It's really interesting how, in general, the custom game population obviously isn't that big, and even before Infinite came out, it still was a smaller community, but the ability of what you can create in Forge mode that translates into custom games is really impressive, and something I really like taking a closer look at. And as we approached day 7 of all of this, we really wanted to find a game of Warzone. After trying every night to just see if we could get into a match of Warzone and not having much luck, we really put an effort into trying to get into one just to see if maybe we could experience it. And especially if we get into the one where there's like the firefight mode, that would be really cool. And we did surprisingly actually get matched with other players who were playing Warzone Firefight. The only problem was every time we tried to connect, one of us just wouldn't load and we would just get disconnected from the game. This happened constantly. We reset our Halos, we reset our Xboxes, and no luck. We continued to run into this problem. It was really frustrating. Ultimately, we remember this being a really cool game mode, and a lot of people obviously still like it if you can still even find a match on Halo 5, but the fact we couldn't even load in was really discouraging. Also, we know we had all of these packs that you get for logging in daily, and you have all these cards that relate to equipment or something. We were just selling those to try to get more packs, to try to get more armor. I feel like a lot of people spent way too much time trying to go through these and sell the packs just to get more points, to get more armor. But hey, that's the grind of the game, and it wasn't really that bad. It was kind of fun after a while, just trying to sell all of our stuff to get armor we wanted. We didn't really find anything we specifically wanted, but still, the thought and the grind was a little interesting. So ultimately, we were able to spend a week not playing the regular Halo games, but playing Halo 5 Guardians, and this was our experience. It wasn't as terrible as maybe we thought it would be going into it, but at the same time, there were a few things I was optimistic about going back to Halo 5 Guardians. So in a way, I was prepared to be impressed, or prepared to at least feel like there's more features in Halo 5 Guardians than there are in Halo Infinite to experience. So the variety of experiences we were able to have really made the entire week much more pleasant, and there definitely were a lot of really cool concepts and ideas that were in Halo 5 Guardians overall. Now, of course, like I said, Halo 5 Guardians, when it was the newest Halo game, had a lot more weighing on it because it was representative of what the future of Halo would look like and what the current state of Halo had looked like. And I don't think it did the best job at putting Halo's best foot forward back then, but now that it's kind of bookmarked and closed off as there's a new Halo game disappointing people, I feel like we're much more appreciative of the things that we actually did have in Halo 5 Guardians, because nowadays we just don't have them in Halo Infinite. So maybe we should have been nicer to Halo 5 Guardians, because who would have thought the next big Halo game wouldn't have Forge, or co-op campaign, or custom games, or a Warzone firefight type game mode, or an infection playlist, or different types of gun variants, or multiple different games in a ranking system, or a working file share system, or a custom games browser. So it was really interesting to go back and experience this, but we'd like to turn this around to you guys. Have any of you guys made a trip back to Halo 5 Guardians since Halo Infinite's release? Let us know if you have and what you experienced, or if you're thinking about going back in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video though, make sure you are subscribing, notifications on for more videos like this. That's it for today. We'll see you all next time with a brand new video.